Hello everyone! Pine Apple here with the next of the 13th Doctor Adventures, Episode 4, Ride or Die by Roshana Patel. Last time we had Lionesses in Winter, and while it had good acting and concepts, the setting up of the overarching narrative got in the way and slightly undermined the emotional core of the story. Like Lionesses in Winter, this story isn't without problems, but the story's more slightly negative moments are more its own, as all set up for the overarching narrative fits in pretty well here. Once at the beginning, once at the end, and with an escaping bad guy who may crop up later. Before we get into said story, let's talk about the characters. Starting with 13, of course, reprised by Jodie Whittaker, and she's as good as ever, the heavily anti-war theme allowing for her to get some great moments. Sure, we still don't have that darker 13 I've been waiting for, but her refusal to fight in another war to her dynamic with Yaz, having to hold Yaz to the moral mark so she doesn't do something she'll regret later, all of that is done very well on both paper and in Jodie's performance. Her appeals to be better and to strive for a better way, not as grandiose as 12's, but feel just as stalwart in her speeches. Also, she gets some decent comedy here, not the usual cringe behind the sofa kind that I usually find myself not liking in 13 stories. Of course, we also have Yaz reprised by Mandip Gill, and personally I wasn't exactly enraptured by Yaz's storyline, personally caring more about the Doctor's side of things. But I can't deny this is probably one of the best focuses on Yaz, considering in her tenure we honestly only got brief, meaningful looks into her life with Demon of the Punjab and Can You Hear Me? Plus like 3 episodes of Dan going, "Oh, you should bang the Doctor." Yeah, that was a terrible Dan impression, but you get the gist. Yaz has a nice drama with Megan, a paramedic with a crush on her, and we even briefly touch upon Yaz's internal conflict when it comes to her feelings. Of course, we can't really progress past the TV show, Megan having a nice sentiment when she talks about how Yaz might not be gay, but just be open to the right person. A nice moment from an annoying character. Anyway, back to Yaz, who we were trying to talk about. These little moments were good, and her journey of pacifism to "I'll kill them all," which I thought was a very good way of showing what war and hurt can do to a person, and how hard it can be to end a cycle of violence. The theme of everyone but the chiefs and moneymakers being victims in war being a powerful one. Next, we have the aforementioned paramedic Megan Miller, played by Lauren O'Leary. And she kinda sucks. The performance and writing aren't bad or anything, but all she does is really be out for herself. Sure, she helps Yaz with a gay pep talk, but apart from that, she flirts, is instantly ready for indiscriminate murder, and can't even do that right because when not backed up by a massive sonic cannon, almost pussies out. She just wasn't enjoyable to have around, and I couldn't care less when she died. In a really underwhelming death scene, the best parts of her involvement are how she affects Yaz. On the ground of the planet Rock, we have Sergeant Johnson, played by Akko Mitchell, who, while not amazing, I thought was a nice evolution of the stereotype. He spends most of his time being the "let's wage war and shoot whatever looks different from us" type American. But as a soldier, he has a gruff and battle-focused exterior, but when push comes to shove, if he can see a way towards peace, he does take it. He's not a warmonger, he's a soldier that thinks fighting is the only option. He's still a confrontational ass, but his ultimate aim is peace. Lastly, for the story proper, we have the main villain of the episode, the one funding both sides of the war, Prospero. Prospero is a mix of human and alien tech, inferred to possibly be connected to Torchwood, since he's connected to Canary Wharf. But essentially, he's behind all the conflict, even sending the people and Banshee to Rock over the years, simply because he is designed to make a profit, and send the earnings back to Earth. A clever way to show how a system run on constant accumulation of wealth is a dangerous thing when it comes to what some people will do to make money, or who the common people will unwittingly be hurting in their everyday life. Sure, the lesson does have a few times it almost goes into overly direct Orphan 55 territory, but Prospero is a nice villain, both in what he represents and his personality, and since he escapes, I hope we'll see him again in another interesting capacity. Lastly, the tourist does make a small appearance at the end, played by Madison Bullymont. And it's nice as a cliffhanger, seemingly trying to get the Doctor to experience specific situations likened to itself, and seems to be escaping something, but it's strange that the tourist kinda acts different to how we saw it last, in which it was almost ready to let a person wither and die, shattering the universe just so it could hang out, and then tried to take the Doctor's body. And now at the end of this story, just kinda leaves who it was inhabiting and wanders off. So logistically, I'm not sure what's up, but the cameo and continuation of the arc was nice. Now let's talk about the story. To start with, 13 gets a bunch of times and locations messaged to her, thinking it might be a trap. So of course they take a look anyway, ending up in the lovely vistas of Afghanistan in 2018. Surely nothing bad can happen there. The danger is revealed as we get a first listen from our gun-ho American troops who are zapped away through a portal. 13 pretty quickly figuring out these coordinates point to these tears. After an odd reference to The Wizard of Oz considering 13 and the fam's history with that book, 13 plans to save whoever had been taken by the Rifts and bring them home. So she configures a tracker and plans to throw it into wherever they end up, but the next location is a little close to home, slap bang in Yaz's time and town. Just in time for the rift though is Yaz's complicated status, but let's go with friend, Megan, appearing in her ambulance. And I find the timing of the scene pretty funny. Yaz puts on her cop voice and tells Megan to scram, but in the time you think Megan would have driven a decent ways, the portal adjusts from where it should be and takes the ambulance away while Yaz tells 13 about their complicated relationship. Yaz ends up being taken at the same time, but is holding the tracker, so 13 quickly follows. On the other end of the portal, Yaz helps Megan get acclimatized, but things go wrong quickly as some soldiers skedaddle them out of there when the Banshees attack. Megan shocked about being on an alien planet, but immediately shrugging her shoulders and deciding to unload a sonic cannon on their asses. Now, it's during these fights, I must admit, while I think a lot of the score is fantastic, some of the sound design, such as here, and when the ATV crashes later, I just don't think that the deaths and carnage come across well. It's not all of these types of moments, but there are a couple obvious examples. Meanwhile, 13 arrives and meets the sergeant, telling her the planet is named Rock. Very uninspired, but funny enough. And she is instantly conscripted, rightly telling him to shove it. But while she won't fight, she will do everything in her power to bring peace.
I won't wage war for you. I won't kill for you, and I won't respond to threats or coercion. But I will bring your war to an end. I promise you that. Because that's always the right thing to do.
The population of humans having skyrocketed as people have been being taken since the 1600s. The massive part of the population being born here, meaning they have no home to be whisked away to. A clever twist, and while it's not really focused on for long, I do like the quick trip we get into civilian life. Yaz goes to the cells as 13 decides to use the TARDIS translation circuits to parley with a captured Banshee. Yaz having been on her own side quest with a bloodthirsty and obnoxious Megan, where the local army has conscripted them and teleported in purchased weapons and fatigues with a real rip-off of the Star Trek transporter sound effect. Way too close for coincidence. So 13 lets the Banshee talk and with arduous effort lets it escape, and in return it only incapacitates them. Although I wouldn't have minded if it did attack Megan, but it graciously leaves her alone when she opens the door for it. 13 had already put a tracker on the Banshee, hoping it will lead back to its base, but also freeing a prisoner of war, having good things to say about the Geneva Convention's meanings. 13 getting a lot of these little points across well. Her little speeches and dialogues not only well written, but suiting the character better than theatrical monologues would. 13 Yaz and Megan speed after it, Megan flirting with Yaz more than anything else it seems, giving the sergeant a great moment where the guy you initially think will be a let's kill them all type realizes 13 is their best bet, and if they don't put their all into the peaceful solution she's going for, nothing will ever truly change. Honestly, a fantastic moment. Yaz and Megan have a nice little talk like I explained before, doing well for Yaz while not going too far, but in their pursuit more Banshee attack, sending the ATV over and killing Megan. 13 having to do all she can to stop Yaz from picking up where Megan left off in the whole murder through vengeance thing.
Listen to me, Yaz. Holding on to our principles is easy most days. It's when they're tested, like this, they actually matter. That's when you have to stay true to who you want to be.
But we can't just roll over and die. Those things are gonna kill us.
Yes, but I've got to know you understand. No shot fired in anger or fear or hate is ever going to make anything better.
Thanks to a save from the Sergeant, 13 and Yaz got the opportunity to speak to the head of the Banshee, after making the point that the only ones with any power in war are the leaders. A very interesting sentiment. The Banshee Queen, or as she calls herself, the light that burns, whatever that means, who has been having her people bred and surgically enhanced for war with the same tech recycled from Earth that the humans have been buying, 13 and Yaz impressively managing to reverse the teleporter from the Banshee's racist ass to Prospero, finding him on a remote base above the planet, a factory crafting and selling the armaments to both sides. 13 and Prospero face off, revealing Prospero has been taking the people, manufacturing the conflict solely to make money from the planet's resources. Sort of in a paperclip maximizer way, but also feeling a lot like a greedy human. Prospero hitting this balance as a character nicely. 13 and Yaz use the rifts to jump to Canary Wharf, mentioning Torchwood's sketchiness, and 13 reveals it's all a money-making scheme for the British populace, with many villainous businesses from the Doctor's past profiting. JLR from the Arachnids in the UK, Vor from Spyfall, International Electromatics from The Invasion, and Global Chemicals and Autoplastics from the Third Doctor era, all great references. To solve this, 13 uses her unit fund from her time working there to buy Prospero out.
When your entire civilization is built on an economic system designed to make endless profit, devoid of conscience, or regard for human dignity, or even the planet that sustains it. When the system is that ethically bankrupt, you don't need villains. You just need people doing their jobs.
Now, is this clever? Yes, but it also feels cheap as all hell, both narratively and as part of the overall message. Sure, her being in unit was brought up earlier in the story, but I wish the resolution, or at least where 13 got the money, came in a different way than her seemingly just pulling it out of her ass and saving the day. A little more Chekhoving of the situation, or tweaking it slightly, would have made it a lot smoother for me. So now, owning Prospero, 13 ruins its value and the stocks tank. But using his autonomy, Prospero uses a secret discretionary fund to buy back all his assets at the low cost, owning himself and skedaddling out of there. 13 doing the same before it can kill them. 13 and Yaz head back down, impressively finding the Sergeant forcing the Banshees into peace talks, ending the story even having some budding bilinguists in their ranks. And everyone, well, the two people they ask, no one else really gets the choice, but both army boys decide to stay, and Yaz talks with 13 about having a better work-life balance, realizing she needs to carve a life for herself for when or if she has to leave the TARDIS, taking on the hard job and informing Megan's mother of her daughter's death. Not sure what the official story will be, but it's a nice show of Yaz's dedication for her to do the job herself. Finally, it's revealed the tourist sent the info at the beginning and was inhabiting the Sergeant, breaking free and claiming it showed 13 something, hoping that it would change something, but it hasn't. But it seems happy enough that it must have made 13 curious. What does this add to the overarching narrative? Not much. But I like that it doesn't interfere with the main plot. It just informs how certain things came to be and hints to what will probably be explored later. Overall, a pretty good ending. So that was Ride or Die, and it was a pretty solid story. Doctor Who usually does anti-war pretty good, and I know that war equals bad is a much more nuanced situation than pure black and white, but almost all of the things 13 advocates for and helps Yaz embody are very true ideals to strive for. And in both the writing and acting, I think it comes across brilliantly. The story does have some stumbles. Megan annoys me, the way we get to the resolution feels lazy even if everything around it was great, and in some scenes the sound design could have used a little more definition. But overall, these problems are much smaller than in any of the other episodes so far. So I'm going to put this right at the top, giving the 13th Doctor Adventures Episode 4, Ride or Die by Roshana Patel, an enjoyable 8 out of 10. Just missing out on an 8.5 though, as I feel like even though I liked Lionesses in Winter, this is a solid step up, not just a tad better. But honestly, that number just doesn't sit perfectly with me, meaning if we ignore Return of the Doctor, we have a pretty steady incline of story quality. Thank you everybody for watching my review of Ride or Die. Please like the video if you liked it, comment down below if you wish, consider subscribing to the channel, and if you do, ring the notification bell so you're told every single time that I make an upload. Once again, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next review. Bye!
Toast. A little piece of toast. Because there's so much to choose from. There's brown bread, white bread, all sorts of wholemeal bread. It comes in funny packages with writing on the side.